Hey there, it's Shantae Nicole with Financial Common Sense. Today on Making Sense of Money, we're going to be discussing credit. Do you know what credit is? Do you know how credit works? If not, don't worry. We'll discuss everything in great detail. Have you seen one of these before? It's a credit card. Do you know how credit cards work? If not, follow me over to the next slide. Remember, in our previous sessions, we discussed debit cards and how those work. Debit cards take money from your checking account whenever you make a purchase. That means you have to have the money in your bank account before you make the purchase. However, with a credit card, that allows you to borrow money and you can pay it back whenever you make a purchase. That means you can walk into a store, swipe your credit card, and walk out without having to pay any money. But guess what? Remember, you've borrowed that money, so you have to pay it back for whatever you purchase. If you are borrowing money from a bank or a person, you are considered a borrower. If you are the person or business giving the money or lending the money, you are a lender. And interest is money that you owe for borrowing money and paying it back at a later date. What is a credit report? Let's go back in time a little bit. Remember when you were in school and you got grades from your teacher? Where did they put those grades to show your parents or caregiver how well you were doing in school? On your report card. Just like your credit report talks about how responsible you are with borrowing money and paying it back. So what's a credit score? Well, just like on our report card, they calculated a 3-digit number called a GPA. That GPA also lets your parents or caregivers know how well you were doing in school. So your credit score is a number that's calculated based on the information on your credit report. So your credit report and your credit score both indicate how responsible you are with borrowing money and paying it back. So credit just means you borrow money and it must be paid back at a later date. What is debt? Debt is simply money that you owe. So what are some good uses of credit? Well, if you're buying a house or going to college to get more education, those are good uses of credit. The bank will lend you the money for the house and then you pay back the bank. The student loan servicer will actually give you money to pay for your education and you have to pay back the student loan servicer. So what are some bad uses of credit? Well, if you're using credit, and remember, when you use credit, you have to pay back the money and you buy things like furniture or clothing or jewelry. And if you don't have the money to pay back in full, that is a very bad thing. So why do I need credit? Well, people need credit to pay for things they don't have the money for. But if you don't have all the money, the bank will make the purchase for you, or they will loan you the money. And then what? That's right, you have to pay back the bank. Unfortunately, when this happens, the bank will charge you what? Remember, interest, because you borrowed money from them and they want all of their money back. But if you can't give it back at one time, they will charge you interest. That means you're paying more for your purchases. Is that a good thing? That's never a good thing. If you buy a shirt for $20, do you want to pay $50 for the same shirt? No. So remember we discussed credit scores. Your credit score ranges, meaning it goes from one number to another number. So it starts at 300 and it goes to 850. If you have a 300 credit score, that is not a good thing. That means you need to work on building good credit so that you have a better score. 850 is excellent. But what if I don't have good credit? If you don't have good credit, you look risky. Well, what does that mean? If the lender, the person who's letting you borrow money, pulls your credit report and your score, and they see that you have not been responsible with borrowing money and paying it back, that means they may not want to let you borrow money from them because they're afraid you may not pay them back either. So let's go back to talking about credit cards. In order to get a credit card, You must apply. You cannot walk into a bank and just say, "Give me a credit card. I want one right now." You have to apply. When you apply, what will they do? They will pull your credit report and your credit score to see what? How responsible you've been with borrowing money and paying it back. Now, if you do obtain a credit card, they will give you a credit limit. Well, what does that mean? That means they give you a certain amount of money and you can only borrow up to that amount. So if you get a credit card and they give you $200, you can only borrow up to $200. So, could you go into the store and buy something for $500? No, your credit limit is only how much? That's right, $200. Now, remember, you can make purchases with your credit card, and when you do this, you are borrowing money. And what must you do when you borrow money? Pay it back. When you use a credit card, the credit card company is the one that pays the store for whatever you bought. So let's just say you went to a restaurant and you bought a meal that cost $15. If you pay for that meal on your credit card, the credit card company is actually the one who paid for the meal. And who do you have to pay back? You're right again, the credit card company. Now, you have to pay the credit card company back for any money that you borrow, whether you went to a restaurant, you bought clothing, you bought games, you bought toys. You have to pay back the person who you borrowed money from. The credit card company will send you a bill for what you purchased. So if you bought something for $20, the credit card company is going to send you a bill for $20. That lets you know how much you have to pay them back. Now, if you do not have all the money right away, they will allow you to pay a smaller amount, but they will charge you what? Remember, interest. So if you bought something for $20 and you don't pay back the entire $20, you will be charged interest, which means you'll be paying more for your purchase. So you charge something on your card, they send you a bill, and then they say you have to pay this money back on June 21st. Well, what will happen if you pay them back on June 22nd? They're going to charge you a late fee. When they send you a bill to tell you how much you owe them, they want their money at the time they listed, which is June 21st. Now, you can borrow cash from your credit card. Wow, that's interesting. So that means I can actually take cash from that plastic card and use that to buy things? Sure, you can. But that interest rate, remember, that's how much you pay back if you don't give all the money back at one time. It will be much higher than if you use the card to make a purchase. And if you lose this card, don't worry. You just need to report it to the credit card company and they will make sure to get you a new one. I know that's happened to me before, and I was able to get a new card. Now, what are some advantages to credit cards? Advantages just mean what are the good things about credit cards? Well, you can make a purchase for something immediately without having the cash. Imagine walking into a store, you see something you want, and you don't have cash, but you can just swipe your credit card and walk out of the store with that item. You can build your credit when you use credit cards and making on time payments. Remember, they want their money at the time they put on your bill. So that helps you build credit. All of that information will go on what? Your credit report. And remember, that's just like a report card. So it will show other lenders who you want to borrow money from how responsible you've been with other lenders. You may gain rewards for purchasing items with their credit cards. Isn't that wonderful? Some credit card companies will give you cash just for using their credit cards. Or do you like to travel? I like to travel. I fly on planes, I go to different countries, I stay at hotels, and sometimes the credit card company will pay for those things for you just for using their credit cards. Sometimes you can get points for using your credit cards, and you can transfer those points to gift cards so you can go buy things that you love and you don't have to pay that back. It's just a gift. Now, you can build good credit if you use your cards often and responsibly. What are some disadvantages to credit cards? That means, what are the bad things about using credit cards? Well, remember, if you pay interest, you will owe more for your purchase than how much it really cost. You can be charged a late fee if you don't pay on time, and it could also hurt your credit score if you don't pay on time. Remember that 3-digit number we talked about? You want to make sure that you're using credit responsibly and paying back on time. You may not be able to pay back what you owe. So sometimes people use credit cards and they think, well, by the time my bill is due, I'll have the money to pay it back. But what if you don't? Oh no, you can't pay back on time. You can't pay them back the money that you borrowed, and that's never a good thing. And using credit can lead to overspending. Well, what does that mean? Remember, you can walk right into the store, buy all the things you want without having to hand over any money. It's so easy to hand over your credit card and they swipe it and you walk out with your purchases. But if you do this too many times and once you get your bill, what may happen? You may not have all that money to pay them back, the money that you actually borrowed. That's never a good thing. So to recap, this is a credit card. This is from Capital One, but they have several different banks that offer credit cards. You swipe this card when you want to buy something on credit. Remember, a debit card means you have to have the money in your checking account at the time when you make the purchase. But a credit card means you can borrow money to make your purchase, but you have to pay it back at a later date. Your credit report is just like your report card. It shows how responsible you've been with borrowing money and paying it back. Your credit score is just like your GPA. It also shows how responsible you've been, but it's in a numeric form. Instead of words on your credit report, they give you numbers. Credit, money you borrow that must be paid back at a later date. Remember, if you don't have good credit, you look risky to the lenders, meaning they may be afraid to let you borrow money because they've taken a look at your credit report and they saw that you were not responsible with other lenders, so they are afraid that you may not be responsible with them. So our goal is to make sure that we establish really good credit so that we aren't looking risky to lenders. And even though they are disadvantages to having credit cards, those are things that you can control. You can make sure you pay back what you owe. You can make sure that you don't overspend. If you pay on time, you won't be charged a late fee. And if you pay your balance in full, which means the amount you borrowed, you won't ever pay interest. So we're going to focus on the good things about credit. It can help you build your credit. You can gain rewards and you can show that you're very responsible with borrowing money and paying it back. If you're watching this and you forget some things, don't worry, you can always go back and rewatch. And if you have any questions, be sure to ask someone. Once again, this is Shantae Nicole with Financial Common Sense, and this is Making Sense of Money, Discussing Credit. See you next time. Bye.